Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericashow.com. We're glad to have you here. We made it. Sorry I'm a little late. Don't give me that. Sometimes you push the buttons and it just nothing comes up. And then, I had to get into hair and makeup and all that kind of stuff, wardrobe. It was just a very busy morning, but we're finally here. We're ready to roll. How are you feeling today? Oh, good. Well, the studio audience is in a good mood. How about you out there in podcast land, watching and listening in this morning on Rumble or YouTube or Facebook? We'd love to hear from you, how you like the content this morning. Best way to show how much you're enjoying it is to click that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content so that you can get updates whenever we go live. Wake Up America shows every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time, 5 days a week. So Monday through Friday, and you get a lot of great content here. It's the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to start your morning. We usually try and do light topics, fun things. Whenever there's big news, of course, that's dark and heavy, we do want to cover it. Today, I guess I chose a dark and heavy topic, right? Why fascism is a form of socialism. And we are going to talk about that today at 7:30 a.m. Because I think there's just a lot of confusion out there. People throw around these words all the time, and they don't know what they mean. And I'm kind of tired of being lectured to by 17-year-old conservatives on the internet about what ideology is which and things like that. It's kind of like, sit down, kid. Like, I had to tweet at this 18-year-old conservative Twitter kid yesterday who was like, actually, I had to tweet at him that gif of Ron Swanson, where he's in the Home Depot store and he's like, I know more than you. So I figured maybe today We should look and see what fascists actually say in their own words about whether or not fascism is a form of socialism. But it's not all going to be dark and scary topics. We're also going to have some fun. And I've got some top 5, top 10 lists, some fun things to do this morning. This story that really made me mad. I just started fuming when I saw it. 5 reasons to avoid the Midwest. Excuse me? Squeeze me? Not making my day there. And so we're going to do 5 reasons to avoid the Midwest debunked this morning. Going to be fun. Yeah, be great. Oh, John is rail. He's got some Adams's patriotic perk this morning. Yes, enjoying your delicious coffee, are we? I'm drinking my favorite one today. This is some of Franklin's Electric Elixir, and I actually had to make an emergency buy last night because I've been drinking so much of my own coffee that I had to get some extra stuff. Plus, we designed some new labels for them, so it's time to re-up. Get yourself the new labels. The text on the labels was just a little too small, so you had to have, like, what is this? A coffee brand for ants? So check out Founding Flavors Coffee at ap4libertyshop.com, and when you buy your new bags, they'll have readable font on there. There you go. Matt Unruh says, I need a Georgia shirt like your Missouri shirt. AP, hell yes. You could probably get these at your local Sam's Club. When I saw this at Sam's Club, I was like, I gotta get it. Look at me tweaking my nipples. Oh, wait, that was the wrong sound effect. I needed one of these. There we go. You could probably get these at Sam's Club. I bet you in every state they have, Georgia, whatever it is, Missouri. Get those at Sam's Club. I should probably make those for my own AP for Liberty shop, but I'm too lazy. So we'll debunk 5 reasons to avoid the Midwest here in just a minute. And then we'll talk about some habits that are undermining your happiness and sabotaging your growth. Corey C says he's drinking Washington's Revolutionary Roast. Awesome. Isn't that cool? It's kind of fun how this community works. So we all hang out in the morning together. So it's all like we're all friends. We're getting together. We're sitting down in the theater. And it's like, unlike theater or like other productions, you don't get to participate. You actually get to participate. And we're all kind of like drinking the same coffee and kind of stuff like that. One of us. I mean, the show's been around for almost a year now. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary. Thank you. Thank you. But we've already created a really beautiful community, and it's cool too because we've also added our friends over on Rumble as well, and they're kind of like, existing over there on the side, but they're, sometimes their numbers outnumber us over in the Cantina crew. We've got one Patriot listener this morning, Levin214 joining us. He's already pooping on the Midwest. Boo, boo. He says the Midwest doesn't have any SEC championships. Okay, well, you got us there. Kermode Bear says, please avoid the Midwest. Stay in your coastal cities. I am okay with this. Yes, very good. Drinking the Franklin. Dude, this stuff is good. No sour stomach. Yes, exactly. It is good. What's up, Tamara? How you doing? Nice to see you, beautiful. We're all here today. John Turner's joining with us today. It's nice to see it all. Matt Unruh's here with us saying, I was offering to buy it from you. All right. So we'll talk about reasons to avoid the Midwest, debunked a little bit later. But because, of course, Donald Trump has to invade and be involved in every facet of our lives, it's like,
how dare you?
Of course, we have to talk about the Donald Trump indictment. Ex-president charged with bid to overturn 2020 election. Oh. It's so exhausting. He's accused of 4 counts, including conspiracy to defraud the U.S., tampering with a witness, and conspiracy against the rights of citizens. Good God, it's so exhausting. Am I the only person who's just absolutely exhausted by all of this crap? We are
led by very, very stupid people. Very, very stupid people.
Yeah, exactly. So Mr. Trump, 77 years old, he's running for president, he denies any wrongdoing. On Truth Social, he posted calling it ridiculous. At this point in time, I just am so over it. I'm just so exhausted. I mean, are you? I know Trump supporters are really animated by this stuff, and there's a lot of people who really get fired up by this stuff, but I'm not going to lie. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm going out of my mind. I'm tired of having to talk about this man every single day of my life. I want someone who is going to make politicians boring again. And that's why when I ran for office, it was like, I want to be a forgotten president, right? I'm just so tired. I mean, and it's not just him, right? It's not just him. Okay. Does he want to always be the center of our lives and the universe of our universes? Sure. But there's only so much one man can do to make himself the center of our universe. And it's not just his supporters, because yes, his supporters are always constantly Trump, 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 Trump. It's like it's like DeSantis supporters. You see them, God bless them online. They're out there, they're pushing their guy, but it's like they're not pushing to make him the center of all of our lives. And then on the outside of that, again, fine, you're a Trump supporter, okay, fine. It's not even the Trump supporters, it's the media. They just you know what it is? They're desperate for the cash. You know what it is? They're going for it's the cash grab by the media. They just won't shut up about him. They cannot stop talking about him. Every time he farts, he toots, he pees, he poops. He is in the front page of the news, and I am sick of it. I am sick of it. Now, I get bored easily. I know a lot of people, they don't get bored easily, maybe as I do. I get bored pretty damn easily. So, oh my God, since what? 2015, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 9 effing years of our lives. So, 9 years of our lives absolutely consumed with coverage about Donald Trump. 9 years. And we're threatening to have
No, God, please, no, no.
14 more,
no,
what 14 no. years, 4 more, 5 more years, 6. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I'm just tired. I'm just so tired. I'm just so tired. Okay, maybe you don't feel that way. Okay, maybe you got involved in politics like 3 years ago. Okay, I get it. I understand. You're fresh, you're young. I've been around a little while. Okay, I'm just tired. Just so tired. Yeah. Okay. So what are we here? What the hell are we doing? I'm overhearing about it, honestly. Yes, thank you. Anyways, so because it is the center of the universe and because it is the biggest news and because there's not a lot of other news going on, I am required by law to talk about the Trump indictment with Judge Napolitano. Had to listen to the judge this morning, get his take on recent charges. As figured, he broke down the conspiracy charges as a ridiculous law, Joni. Oh, well, then you've already heard it. So talking about bored, you're going to be very bored because Judge Napolitano is going to talk about that same thing. But then I'm also going to segue, of course, into big brain time with Judge Napolitano to confirm my biases about why fascism is a form of socialism, which we will get to here in about 15 minutes, because you know what? It's big brain time. We're going to learn something today. And I don't care if it's not going to get me 1 million views on my social media, or I don't care if this live stream doesn't get 1 million, doesn't make me a single damn penny from super chats or subscribers or anything like that. I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to talk about what I think is interesting on this morning on the show. I know I'm supposed to make a show that is interesting to you, and we should do, but you know what I did? I did find a story that I think will be good for the audience. I found a wine Karen who is mad on a flight because she couldn't get her wine, and she's drunk and she's screaming, and there you go. I probably should have made that the centerpiece of the show, and then I'd get a lot more viewers and listeners and make more super chats, but I don't care. It's my show, GD it, and I'm going to talk about brain stuff. Where is Chris this morning? Could be a good one. All right. All right. And then, of course, we got Cliff Maloney at 8:30. So a new poll came out that showed of high school senior boys that they skewed conservative by a wide margin. So high school senior boys nearly twice as likely to be conservative as liberal, according to a new survey. But there's a catch, as there always is. We will talk about what the catch is with our buddy Cliff Maloney this morning at 8:30. That'll be exciting. Yeah. Man, this coffee's really getting me going today. I'm feeling good. All right. So since we don't like to start the show with the dark, heavy topics right away, I know you're supposed to start with the big news at the top of the show, but F it. I'm just going, I'm going my own way today. 5 reasons to avoid the Midwest. I read this article yesterday and it teed me off with the headline. I'm already mad. And I don't even read the story. I just read the headline. Just kidding. 5 reasons to avoid the Midwest at drivinvibin.com. Sounds like such a boomer website. They say, if you like the urban scene, nothing beats New York City, Miami, or Los Angeles. Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? If you love waking up to beautiful sunrises or hiking to see breathtaking sunsets, nothing beats Utah, Arizona, or New Mexico. Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? However, if you're looking for a reason to visit the Midwest, writes boomervibin.com, no, just drivinvibin.com, there aren't many good ones. There are more reasons to avoid this region of the country. Let's take a closer look at America's heartland and consider why you may want to skip it altogether. Keep in mind, this is simply our opinion and could even be viewed as parody sometimes. Oh, don't even try and be like, oh, don't get mad at us and stuff like that, and act like you weren't trying to be a dick, okay? Because we know you were. Driving, vibing, boomers.com. Okay, here we go. What states make up the Midwest? So that's probably a good thing. Let's define our terms before, as as Mark Twain, the great Missourian, once said, a good reason to visit Missouri. Get the facts straight, and then you can distort them as you please. So the 12 states in the central and north central parts of the USA make up the Midwest. North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Missouri, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio, and Michigan. I was always confused that Ohio was part of the Midwest because it's neither mid nor west. Uh, Generally, these states lie between the Rocky Mountains to the west. If you want mid, you go to Kansas. Da, 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 da. Kansas. Almost 69 million people live in this region of the country. 69. Very nice. What is the Midwest known for? And I just grinding my teeth this morning, not just because of the delicious caffeine, but because of the way they say this. When you see a picture of grain fields or open plains, you probably think of the Midwest. This area features low, flat to rolling terrain that's ideal for farming and raising cattle. However, there are a few areas with higher elevations like the eastern Midwest near the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains and southern Missouri near the Ozark Mountains. No, Sherlock. Yeah, Ozarks. Where do you think the word hillbilly came from? People often refer to the Midwest, God, I hate the way these boomers write, as America's heartland. The agricultural bounty in this region supplies much of the food for Americans. Thanks, geniuses. The Midwest also provides much of the steel manufacturers use in cars and trucks across America. However, this country's central region is also Tornado Alley, a less favorable label. Oh, okay. Well, why don't we call Los Angeles Earthquake City? How's that? Or how about we call San Francisco Turd Blossom? How about that? Your coastal cities. The transition from winter to spring produces more tornadoes here than elsewhere in the United States. Well, thank you, driveandvibin.com. All right, let's get to the 5 reasons they say you need to avoid the Midwest. They say whether you're looking to do a cross-country trip or on the hunt for fun Midwestern adventure, keep these 5 reasons why you may want to avoid the Midwest in mind before you go. Boo! Boo, sir, boo. Uh, I have to give a shout out real quick to Joe Spinella. He says, I'm Italian, Austin. We created the fascism, which is why I laugh like Mussolini when some late teen, early 20-year-old tell me otherwise. Good morning, Joe. Thanks for the super chat, bro. See, I can make money talking about things that I actually give a shit about. We're going to get to the why fascism is a form of socialism in just a minute, Joe, so stick around. You don't want to miss that. Barney Style says it'll be a cold day in hell before I recognize Kansas. Yeah. Here we go. They say, okay, so here's the number 1 reason they say why you need to avoid the Midwest. The scenery is not impressive. What the hell is wrong with you? When you plan a road trip or explore nature, you want to see majestic mountains or crashing waves. Maybe you love the red rocks of the Southwest or the rocky cliffs of Maine. Been to Maine, and no offense to Eric Brakey or anything like that, or like some of my friends up there, not that impressive. Okay. You don't get that in the Midwest, writes driveandvibin.com. If rolling hills and flat open plains are your forte, you'll love it. but most of us prefer to see the beautiful landscapes we see in paintings and photographs. Artists generally don't go to the Midwest for inspiration. Excuse me? Hold on one second. What artists used the American Midwest for inspiration? I now have ChatGPT installed into my brain. The American Midwest has been a significant source of inspiration for various artists. Some notable artists include Thomas Hart Benton. Can I get an amen? And a round of applause. Many of you don't know Thomas Hart Benton. He was born in Missouri, and his paintings often celebrate the people, landscapes, and history of the Midwest. And we have a lot of murals, Thomas Hart Benton murals, here in Jefferson City in mid-Missouri. So Grant Wood, he was an American painter best known for his iconic painting American Gothic, which depicts a farmer and his daughter in front of a farmhouse. He was born in and spent much of his life in Iowa. Uh, John Stewart Curry, Grant Wood's contemporaries like Sherwood Anderson, Willa Cather, Carl Sandburg, and Jackson Pollock. He spent a large part of his childhood in the American West and Midwest. Caleb Vanderfelt says, if this article keeps coastal city dwellers out of Midwestern small towns, I say hell yes. Caleb, I'm glad that you're here. It reminds me, I want to cast you to play a role in my new documentary, brother. I will reach out to you about that very soon. Five reasons you need to avoid the Midwest, according to driveandvibin.com. First of all, scenery is not impressive. That's bull crap. Stephanie and I just drove from Jefferson City, Missouri to Athens, Tennessee. So we went from mid-Missouri to East Tennessee, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. People act like lakes aren't beautiful. Like, have you ever seen a gorgeous lake, like the countryside that rolls into the lake? When we were down in East Tennessee, you get to those Smoky Mountains and stuff, and I know that you're not like known for the mountains, but I mean, I live in Missouri, and we've got Southwest Missouri, and we've got some, quote unquote mountains, and they're beautiful. But the drive from Missouri to Tennessee was gorgeous. Were there some boring parts of flat open land and stuff like that? Sure. I think the problem is that people like this, they just drive across like I-70. They only go through the main thoroughfares, and they're like, oh my God, Missouri is so boring because you only went across I-70. So all you saw were the same crappy road signs and fast food places that you get in every other part of the country. But did you drive south of I-70? Did you go to the Ozarks, right? Have you ever been on a float trip in Missouri with the Cantina crew like we're all going to do here very soon? Cheeky Mare says, seems pretty Plains Indians phobic to me. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Farmland and barns are cool. Yes, they are. Met another implant from California yesterday who moved to South Missouri 5 years ago for her forever home. They are moving here in droves. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Joni. I've lived in New York. I've lived in DC. It's not that great. Scenic Nature Docs says good soundboard. Well, thank you very much. Yes. I do need to switch it up and add some more sounds, though. Quantum Kitty reminds us that actually Alabama and Tennessee have more tornadoes the last few years than we have. And she says, hey, don't pick on her state of Kansas. Sorry. 5 reasons not to Midwest. They say that not to visit the Midwest. They say the scenery is not that impressive. That's bull hockey. They say the weather is bad year round. This is the number 2 reason not to visit the Midwest. Summers are hot and humid while winters are cold and gray. Although you might enjoy springtime flowers, you might also be dodging tornadoes. Okay, well, that's true. So in reality, the only time you'd want to visit the Midwest is 2 or 3 months of the fall. You are so wrong. No, not only is weather lousy, but it can also be extreme. Blizzards and whiteout conditions are common in the winter. No, they're not. It's not common for blizzards to happen here, at least not in Missouri. Maybe in other parts of the Midwest, but like we get some snow, some decent snow, and then it goes. I mean, Missouri's weather is fairly temperate, but they're, encompassing the entire Midwest, and I'm focusing on Missouri. So maybe on average, plus you're including North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota in a lot of this stuff. So, okay, maybe on average, but you're including all those, all the frigid North. Like, I know that I would be wrong to say that North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota are not the Midwest because they technically are, but we kind of don't claim them here in the Midwest. I mean, we consider them the North, the frigid North. I mean, it's as good as Michigan, or like you might as well be in I don't know, Maine or something like that when you're up there. Now, this is one that, okay, you could say to an extent they might have a point. I might agree with them to a little bit, but then I don't want to give them the point. Here's the third thing that they say, reasons not to visit the Midwest. The food is disappointing. Okay. Okay. Maybe. All right. All right. Although you might love a Chicago deep dish pizza, they write, or chow down on a Chicago style hot dog. Yes, thank you. There isn't much else to tease your taste buds. What? What is wrong with you? They say outside of Chicago, people don't know the Midwest for its food choices. Hello. What the F is Kansas City barbecue, you morons, you idiots?
We are led by very, very stupid people.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Very, very stupid people.
Exactly. I mean,
We
God,
cannot
bro.
let it continue.
Get your ass on, boy. You get your goddamn ugly ass.
Here they say, how about a side of wheat toast with your soup? What? The menu options don't have the same flair and diversity as other locations in America. You don't have the Latin or Asian influences that you might find in Texas or California. Okay, yeah, well, Jefferson City has 3 Japanese restaurants, and mind you, they're all pretty similar, right? But Latin, okay, true. We could definitely use some more. Honestly, if somebody wants to get rich in Missouri, open up a Peruvian chicken joint somewhere. For the love of God, someone open up a Peruvian chicken joint in Missouri. They got this special yum yum sauce from Peru. That's this Peruvian yum yum sauce that is just so good. And then they got that verde that's some kind of like it looks like it's kind of like a thick verde sauce that they make as well. Oh my God, I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. Because and then you'll have this charcoal chicken. That's what you get. The Peruvian chicken is like a charcoal fired chicken. So it's just smoky and delicious. And it's got like crispy and stuff. And then their like spices and flavors that they put on their Peruvian chicken is just, oh God, it's just unbelievable. And then you get like yuca fries as well. Joe Spinella is like, putting some cash on my thong. Thank you, Joe. We'll get to that in just one second. But the yuca fries, oh my God. You get the chicken and you dip the chicken that's already spiced in the charcoal fired chicken in their yum yum sauce and maybe a little verde. But then you get the yuca fries with it and you dip those delicious crispy yuca fries. So much better than like potato French fries, in my opinion, yuca fries, because the way that when they're cooked to perfection by the proper Peruvian, and then you get like an Inca cola. Have you ever had an Inca cola? Oh my God, I miss Peruvian food. So, okay, perhaps they do have there is some improvement that can be made here in the food. But let's see what Joe Spinella has to say. He says, Austin, I live in Minnesota. Thanks for putting the $20 in my thong, by the way, Joe. He says, it sucks. Besides driving along Mississippi, it sucks. Poor Joe. Sorry, Joe. If any of you live in these states and I rip on them, just know I'm teasing. Okay. He says, it's besides driving along the Mississippi or going to the North Shore and the Iron Range, aside from Prince and since Floyd, Minnesota just isn't relevant. It's more like South Canada. Oh man. What we got to do is we do need to annex Canada at some point. It doesn't make any sense for there to be a Canada. The British Crown does not need to have a protectorate over here in North America. I say North America belongs to the Americans, and since we are the true Americans, at some point we need to annex Canada and probably Mexico as well, so we can get crime under control. Eric Wilson's here. Is Austin is getting excited. Yes, it is. I am excited. Gamerizer joining us. He says, clicking on the stream about fascism, immediately talking about cooking. We are going to get to fascism in just one moment, Gamerizer. I'm like 2 minutes behind on that topic, but I will get there. I just had to start the show with something a little bit less dark. They say there are fewer opportunities for water recreation. That's bull hockey because we all know that we're all going to go on a float trip together very soon, the Cantina crew, and we're going to have a good time. Amazing that you've got the Great Lakes, you've got the Lake of the Ozarks, You've got all of the rivers and streams of the Ozarks. There are so many beautiful water features. If it's not the ocean, then these East Coasty people are not going to do it. They say there are no major cities, quote, that are cool. What the hell is wrong with you? First of all, they're like Chicago. Okay, well, Chicago is the most populous city, but no other city boasts a population of over 1 million. Columbus, Ohio, Indianapolis, Indiana, Detroit, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Kansas City, Missouri are the only other cities with a population over 500,000. If you're not going to a sporting event, most people don't write on their cities as a bucket list of places to visit. You certainly don't get the New York City or Los Angeles vibe when you visit these Midwestern towns. You're not supposed to. You're not supposed to get a New York vibe or an LA vibe when you go there. It's supposed to be something completely different. And honestly, you know what? Don't come. Don't come to the cities if you're going to be like that. If you think you're going to get a New York or an LA vibe, then just don't come to these cities. Okay. Honestly, don't come. Okay. Or actually do come and bring your tourist dollars. Okay. One word, Branson, says John Turner. Glad to have you here. Gamerizer, Austin says Austin didn't get the joke. I know. Sometimes I'm an idiot. Sorry. I'm sorry. My brain is just,
How dare you?
It is what it is. Cleveland is a hidden foodie mecca. I'm not kidding. It has everything, says Kermode Bear. I did not know that. Springfield has a Peruvian restaurant, says Will Run Riot. It's a good town, dude. Will, tell me the name of the Peruvian restaurant in Springfield. I will go the next time I'm there, and I will take back every word I've said about us not having a Peruvian restaurant. But it is a 4-hour drive to go to, or like a 3-hour drive or so to get to Springfield from where we're at. So it's a long way to drive for Peruvian food, but it is good. Jarritos is popular here. I love it. Yes. Quantum Kitty says it sounds amazing. Second best live stage performance areas after Broadway. Yes, in Branson, and there's Starlight Theater in Kansas City, Missouri. I should just stop telling people why Missouri is so amazing so that you guys won't have here. Tucker Punch just tweeted a picture of me this 7 minutes ago. We've got AP for Liberty on the big screen this morning. Good morning, Tucker. Hope you're doing well this morning, you and your family. Glad to have you here. Come visit the Midwest if you want to have a nice time. Okay, so are we ready to talk about why fascism is a form of socialism? Don't come. I believe you will be turned away. Do not come. I'm gonna come. Thank you for that reminder, Sarah Palacios. I need to put that in my soundboard, honestly. And thanks, Joe Spinella, for the super chats, brother. It really makes it worth it when I get up early, get my ass in here, and make a little cash. I appreciate that. I'm your early morning stripper. Just, tip your strippers. Alrighty, so why am I having this discussion? Yesterday, I was listening to a podcast by one of my favorite YouTubers who I highly recommend. His name is Tick, T-I-K, not T-I-C-K, but T-I-K, and he does a YouTube channel called Tick History. And I was going through this new video that he posted yesterday that's a book review called Analyzing a Modern Fascist Book called Socialism of Duty. And I'm a big student of history. And in the last couple of years, I've spent a little bit more time reading and listening to books on tape about the transition of Weimar Germany into the National Socialist, Republic of, or National Socialist, Nazi Germany, and trying just to understand not just how people began to accept these ideas, but what the ideas really are. Because my understanding of World War II from history class in high school and college was very surface level, and they always focus on the Holocaust, and they talk about the propaganda that got people to accept National Socialism, but no one ever really goes into the dark, deep recesses of the explanations of what fascism really is, what socialism really is, what is National Socialism, what did Hitler really believe? Like, people always say, oh, don't read Mein Kampf, and it's because it's a boring book, and it is a boring book. I read it in high school, and it was very boring, and I didn't understand most of the terms at that time, but now I do. And apparently there was actually a follow-up that was never properly published of another book that was written by Adolf Hitler. But most of the times today in political discussions, you will hear these terms, and they're almost always used in a manner that is inconsistent with the definition of these terms. You'll hear people use the word fascist, or you'll hear use the word socialist, and nobody knows exactly what those terms mean. So I was listening to a podcast yesterday of a book review, and I started reading this book called Fascist Economics and the Socialism of Duty. So this is a modern fascist book, right? This is not Mein Kampf from the 1940s or the early 1900s. And it helps us to understand a little bit better about how fascists look at themselves and how they differentiate themselves from communists, as standard socialists as we think of them in the vein of Antifa. And so fascists, in their own words, describe themselves as socialists, and specifically in this book. I mean, if you can't take them at their own word to some extent, right? Not to say that people like Karl Marx didn't lie in their books, Das Kapital or the Communist Manifesto, because I think they did. And it's not to say that fascists won't lie in their own books about what it is they believe. They do. But what other primary source material do we have to analyze, to study, to understand the terminology that unfortunately we are confronted with on a daily basis? I mean, it used to be that we wouldn't have to have a debate about these terms, and you wouldn't hear people being called a fascist in everyday parlance, but we are now. So it's time for us to start to delve into these philosophies and ideologies to determine what it is that they mean. So in this book, Fascist Economics and Socialism of Duty, this is published by Vuvelsberg Archives and was published in 2017. So there are still fascists out there. They are still operating, and they tell us what they believe. In the first page of this book, they lay it out like this. They say, one of the most plagued questions we get when talking about fascism is economics. Yeah, absolutely. Because in my view, fascism, socialism, communism, these are all rejections of economics itself. I always like to say that there really is no libertarian economics or socialist economics. There's economics, right? There's just economics, and then there is the willful desire to try and subvert the laws of supply and demand that we call ideology. So here's how the author of this book on fascism describes themselves. They say, one of the most plagued questions we get when talking about fascism is economics, normally brought up by people still stuck in a liberal mentality and limited scope of perception. Okay, well, you're already insulting your audience there, where everything is defined in terms of social and economic policies rather than principles derived from the notion of a singular truth, capital T truth, and order, capital O order, that dominates the world. Now, that sounds suspiciously religioso to me. When you think about that, right, to capitalize truth and order is to almost to elevate it to the status of godhood, right? But that'll come later. So they say the variety of historic economic plans and practices maintained by various champions of our struggle, capital S struggle, likewise distorts any comprehensive answer to the question. All in all, we simply answered people that economics are secondary, really. They don't matter in such a way as to be a fundamental and defining element of fascism. See, that's a red flag right there. Red flag. I know it's not a very good pun. Okay, the answer didn't change. However, there is now a way in which we can describe this attitude to economics, and it's actually a word we've used repeatedly in reference to fascism anyway. Socialism.
No,
yes.
God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
Right. So last night when like the 18-year-old conservative Catholic, media figure who, I'm sure means well is trying to lecture me about why fascism is not socialism, probably needs to read this book here, where a modern fascist, describes himself in exactly the same way that Hitler described National Socialism as a legitimate form of socialism. And don't go ask ChatGPT or your leftist professors about whether or not fascism is socialism, because they're going to say that it's not, because ChatGPT has been programmed by left socialists, who of course claim that they are not one of them. But it's very much similar to how like anarchists are like, we have nothing to do with minarchists. They're not libertarians like us, or libertarians, or like minarchists will be like, oh, well, a classical liberal is not like one of us. Gary Johnson is not one of us, because even though we're minarchists, he's a classical liberal. He believes a little bit more government than we do in a social safety net, so he's not one of us. Of course, that we're all libertarians underneath the broad definition of libertarian, but this is similar to the situation when it comes to leftist socialists, Antifa types, and Marxist communist types. They reject the idea that their cousins, the fascists, are socialists, the same way that libertarians reject other libertarians as libertarians. This is what happens in factionalized ideologies where you have maybe 10, 15 different flavors of socialism, and you have maybe 10, 15 different flavors of communism. What does communism taste like? It tastes like starvation to me. Or what does libertarianism taste like? Tastes like it needs a shower. They say but here's the thing. I'm reading from this book. And they say our socialism, however, is not in and of itself an economic system. It is not the socialism of Marx and company, and it stands in direct opposition to both communism and capitalism. It would be more accurate to say that to fascism, socialism is the definitive social structure which is more comparable to the structures of individualism and collectivism, yet it stands in opposition to those two structures as well. So, what are they saying here? They're saying that fascism is a third position away from a concept of socialism from Marx and Company or individualism and collectivism. They say it stands apart from these concepts, right? So their definition of collectivism, they say it's misinterpreted nowadays, right? Because collectivism, they say, is just a mass of individuals with a common interest. In individualism, the one seeks out all of his interests on his own. In collectivism, many people who seek out a common interest group together in the pursuit of that interest. So collectivism is individualism seeking strength on numbers on given common interest. Now, remember, this is written by a fascist, and how they view this, I say, is you have to be careful about that, because quite frequently it falls back into a form of religiosity, because what they are trying to do is to overcome the individual in order to seek ascendance to a higher plane, and they are sort of elevating themselves to a more priestly class, which I highly recommend if you're interested in this topic that you read more about this. It looks like Jacob Champion is joining us right now. Good morning, Jacob. Nice to see you. Thank you for the definitions, by the way. He says you can always go to the Nazi Party platform in order to understand more about this. Absolutely. The Critical Heretic says, I make people define terms if they want to debate. They can't. Yes, of course, they usually can't define those terms. So, is fascism a form of socialism? Yes, it is. In their own words, it is. In their own, and this is in modern fascists' parlance. Okay. Now, when you go over to, back to the 1930s and you read, or the 1929 platform of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, you will find quite clearly that in their policy platform that they had socialist planks in their platform. And it's a fascinating comparison of the fascists of that time to today. So people sometimes will get fascism and National Socialism confused as well. Let's kind of define these terms, because someone said, Hitler and they were fascists, right? That is true, because it's sort of, what do you call this kind of terminology? Help me understand this one as I explain it, right? There's a term for this, but all National Socialists are fascists, but not all fascists are National Socialists, right? How does that work? Okay, it's like kind of like all beans are legumes, but not all legumes are beans, or something like that, right? But if you're a National Socialist, you are a fascist. If you are a fascist, you may not necessarily be a National Socialist. And the reason why is because National Socialism takes the tenets of fascism, highly centralized central planning of the government, and it takes fascism and adds on top of it a sort of a racial cultish layer on it, right? So there's a race cult that's included in the National Socialist ideology that makes it distinct from Mussolini's fascism. So remember, from World War II, one of the more interesting parts of World War II is the fact that Mussolini was not the anti-Semite that Adolf Hitler was. But when Italy started to fall and lose the war and was no longer able to defend itself, Germany invaded, can't I say invaded, but was invited into Italy in order to bolster the war effort there. And that is when they started to institute the anti-Jewish racial laws in Italy, whereas before Mussolini didn't want to enforce those laws against his own people. And if I'm somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Mussolini's lover or his what do you call her, mistress, the one that got hung up with him at the end, I believe she may have been part Jewish, and that might have been part of the reason. But that's the difference between a pure fascist like a Mussolini and a national socialist who adds the anti-Semitic and racial layer on top of it. So it's kind of like all Marxists are communists, but not all communists are Marxists, right? Some they consider themselves to be more Leninists, right? And if it's like all Marxists are feminists, but not all feminists are Marxists. Now, if you go to the definition of feminism, you'll find that there's about 10 to 13 different types of feminism. There is Marxist feminism, there is ecofeminism, there's like pan-feminism, there's all different forms of feminism, right? So one ideology can have multiple different branches, but they're all part of the same tree to a certain extent, depending on which ideology you're discussing here. And National Socialism and fascism will fall under the umbrella of socialism because they meet the criteria of central planning. So just they have different ways to accomplish the same goals, right? And all are a form of collectivism to a large extent, despite the fact that the fascist here writes in his book that they are, opposed to collectivism to a certain degree. Gamerizer is weighing in today. He says that the difference between fascism and Nazism is the definition of the nation. Fascists believed it to be cultural, where Nazis believed it to be racial. That's very interesting, at least when it comes to their views of nationalism. That's interesting, Gamerizer, and it's good to meet you, brother. We're glad to have you here. I appreciate your input. Oh, my beautiful smoking hot Jewish wife is here. Watch out. Don't put her in the ovens. She says, you have an awesome tan, Austin. Thank you. Thank you. So do you, Steph. You actually got a nice tan going on yourself from our time spent outdoors in Tennessee. All right. So that's a lot of words. That's a lot of salad. And I hope that you enjoyed it and appreciate it. Tucker Punch is joining us this morning, and he dropped $5 for us in the kitty. Thank you, Tucker. Making some money today, bro. Glad to have you here. And if you're just turning in right now, don't forget to click the like button on the stream wherever you're joining us this morning and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content that you're watching this morning. We are going to have Judge Andrew Napolitano here in just a few minutes. I'm excited for that. And we're going to speak to Cliff Maloney this morning at 8:30 to talk about high school seniors male high school seniors, identifying very strongly as conservative. Very going to be an interesting topic. All right. So since we've got about 5 minutes to kill, do you guys want to switch topics here? I think, that's definitely a dark topic, and I'm going to point you guys to more resources there. This information that I got came from Tick History. So I want to give a shout out to him and recommend that you subscribe to him on YouTube as well. If you want to read more about that book, just be careful about pouring too much poison in your brain. You should study things, but just, be cautious about what it is that you're reading, and remember that they do have ulterior motives in that. So that book is called, did I delete that? I did. I reopen close tab. Shoot. Was there another tab that I closed? There it is. Analyzing. Okay, so the video that I was watching yesterday that got me interested in this book is, the book is called Socialism of Duty, right? Fascism, the economics of fascism, socialism of duty. And I got that from that Tick History video, which again, he's awesome. And if you want to learn more about like whether or not why Hitler was a socialist, he has a great, like a 3-hour long discussion. So if you have to mow the lawn and you've got 3 hours you got to kill, that's what I like to do, is to tune into those kinds of things so I can get smarter while I'm doing work. Gamerizer says, yeah, unfortunately not early enough for this show, although I was lucky enough today to remember after an all-nighter today. Good. Well, we're glad to have you here, bud. Nico Heretic says they all involve. What am I? Some Long Island girl? Oh my God, Long Island. I dated a girl from Long Island once, and like the accent was just couldn't do it. Bont says it's always okay to engage with the propaganda from the framework that it is still propaganda. Yes, excellent point. Thank you very much. We're seeing some new names this morning. Gamerizer and Bont. Nice to see you here. Glad to have new friends on the show. Always love it when people come out of the woodwork and say, hey, comment and drop yourselves. We'd love to have you as a regular Bont. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We do this show every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central, and we'd love to have you be a regular guest. All right, make friends, sit down, have a chat. What's next? Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay, so let's have a good laugh. Woman banned from United Airlines after wine uproar forced landing. So United Airlines has temporarily banned a woman from flying after she allegedly caused pilots to divert a flight to Los Angeles after an argument with flight attendants about wine. She's a wine mom. She's a wine mom. All right, let's take a look. Let's go to our social weirdness channel. Here she is. She wants her wine. Be classy. I like the person who's shh. Beam me up, Scotty. Give me my wine. So yeah, the melee caused the LA-bound flight to divert to Phoenix. God, wouldn't you be so mad if that happened to you? So the flight attendant accused the woman of drinking before boarding the plane. Says, I knew you were drinking wine, and I still let you board. She was seen arguing with other passengers who yelled at her for causing the ruckus. Videos were uploaded by another user. Says, another video of the Karen who couldn't get her wine. We had to land the plane so she could get escorted off, causing us more delays than we already had over wine. The customer has been barred from United Airlines while they review this matter. So there we go. Have some couth. That's some wine. I would be furious, says Justin. I would be furious too. Anyway, all right. So here's the thing. Judge Napolitano coming up next. We're going to talk to him about the Trump indictments, and then I'm going to talk to him about the nature of fascism, National Socialism, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be a great conversation. Very big brain this morning, very elevated. I hope that you guys have your Founding Flavors coffee so that you can be awake through this, because it's going to get big brain. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
And I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and be aggressive, if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica.
My neck isn't feeling thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides. Didi made plenty bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this counterfeiting. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really heavy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies inches are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bullshit. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bullshit blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your Founding Flavors at apforlibertyshop.com. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We're glad to see you here. Hope you're all feeling well. Good. Everybody's in a good mood, enjoying their Founding Flavors coffee. I was really excited when I saw our friend Will Run Riot this morning agreed with me that the absolute best of all of the coffees from my wife and I's new coffee shop is the Benjamin Franklin Electric Elixir. That's what I like to drink, and I think it's got those notes of hazelnut that everybody enjoys. If you haven't gotten a bag of our delicious new coffee, make sure you check it out at ap4libertyshop.com. All right, well, it's been too long since my next guest has been on the show, but it's time for us to get back to our regularly scheduled freedom fighting with Judge Andrew Napolitano, the host of the Judging Freedom podcast, who's joining us live right now. Good morning, Judge. Nice to see you.
Oh, good morning. Good morning, Austin. It's a pleasure to be with you. I hope that there's an offering of espresso in that coffee company you have.
Yes, sir. We are going to be offering an espresso version very soon, but and I'll make sure that you get a bag of that, Judge. Thanks for joining us today.
Sure.
Judge, listen, from a political angle, I wish that Donald Trump wasn't the center of all of our lives. I don't just blame him for that, or even his supporters for that, always constantly pumping him for that. But I honestly sometimes blame more the media and the left, who are so obsessed with him that they constantly want to make him the center of our lives. On the political side of things, Judge, and we will get to the actual charges made against Donald Trump. Do you agree with me that the left is their favorite enemy, that they want to run against him, that they want him to be the center of the world because the media companies make more money printing stories about him on the one hand, and two, they think that he's a very vulnerable presidential candidate?
I do. I think the only way Joe Biden, if he's the Democratic nominee, gets reelected is if the Republicans are foolish enough to nominate Trump. In my view, if Trump is the Republican nominee, then the focus of the campaign will be on Trump's personality, character, and alleged criminality, as opposed to the horrible stewardship of the executive branch of the federal government by Joe Biden. I think the Democrats are cheering, silently, of course, cheering Trump on.
Now, let's go through this latest indictment, Judge. I'm reading a little bit about the judge that was selected randomly to oversee him, and it doesn't look good. They call her like the enforcer. This seems to be the most serious of the indictments that have been brought against him, but I'd love to hear your take.
I think this is the most serious because the public, from among whom the jury pool will come, can understand it. There may not be a full grasp of the harm caused by retaining classified or national defense secret documents in your home. It's not like he sold them to the Saudis or the North Koreans. He just kept them for vanity reasons. But I think people can understand the palpable harm to democracy, at least as the government sees it, from any effort to interfere with the peaceful transfer of power from Donald Trump to Joe Biden. Now, having said that, I have been an opponent my entire legal career of prosecutions for conspiracy. Of the four charges in this indictment, one is obstruction of justice, the actual prevention of Mike Pence and Congress from counting the electoral college votes, which occurred for about 6 hours, to refresh your memory. After the police had gotten those folks out of the Capitol building, Congress reassembled that evening and they counted the votes. And at that moment in time, Joe Biden was legally the president-elect of the United States. So there was an actual interference. But the other three charges, conspiracy to defraud the United States of the outcome of an election, conspiracy to defraud voters of their right to vote, conspiracy to defraud Congress of its right to meet. These are thought crimes, conspiracy. I'm doing a one-man show off Broadway this fall, Clarence Darrow Tonight. There's a line in Clarence Darrow. He's addressing a jury. His defendants are charged with conspiracy. He says to the jury, now the numbers are a little off because this is 1870 when he says it. If a boy steals a dime, he's not going to go to jail. A small fine will do. But if two boys conspire to steal a dime and then don't do it, they are candidates for the penitentiary. And then he looks at the jury and says, what kind of a country does this to its own people? And one of the jurors says, ours. Now, at that point, he knows he's going to get an acquittal. But the point is, conspiracy is a thought crime. The First Amendment protects the right to speak falsely. The First Amendment protects the right knowingly to speak falsely. Conspiracy, by definition, does not produce harm because it doesn't succeed. If it succeeds, you charge the underlying crime. You don't charge the conspiracy. That is an ideological, philosophical defense for Trump. I don't know that it will prevail in a courtroom because the courts have upheld these conspiracy charges. It's the garden of the prosecutor's favorite. It's the easiest for the government to prove because they don't have to prove harm.
Now, let's talk about the conspirators for a moment, Judge, because speculation was running rampant on the internet yesterday that one of the alleged conspirators in this may have been the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas.
I don't know that is the case, but I can tell you that three of the conspirators are former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, former Clarence Thomas clerk and highly regarded constitutional scholar John Eastman, and former Justice Department official Jeffrey Clark. Now, if you were to ask me why weren't the conspirators identified, or why weren't the conspirators indicted, I will tell you because the conspirators, more likely than not, have cut a deal with the government to testify for the government. In the Mar-a-Lago case, the government tried to get the two co-defendants to testify against Trump. They refused, so the government indicted them. The only reason that Giuliani and the others have not been indicted is because of some deal they must have cut with the government. So imagine this trial of Rudolph Giuliani and Mike Pence testifying against Donald Trump in a public courtroom under oath.
Would Giuliani do that?
He might not have any choice unless he wants to become a defendant himself. It's not a coincidence that last week, just 5 days before the indictment came out, Giuliani, who's a defendant in civil litigation in Georgia for accusing two voting officials of committing fraud, admitted publicly or in a document in court that he had no evidence as the basis for his admission. I'm sure that was part of the deal he cut with the feds to get him out of that trap in Georgia.
Some good insight here. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're glad to have you here. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the commentary that you're hearing. Judge Napolitano and I are old friends, and he joins us on the show every week, every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Central Time. You can also watch his show, his stellar mega hit show, the Judging Freedom podcast, which you can download on any of your devices, and he has a weekly column at judgenap.com. Now, Judge, you know judges fairly well. This woman who was selected to oversee this trial, she is known for harshly sentencing the January 6 rioters. She also represented the fraudulent blood testing company Theranos while she was working at a law firm that was first associated with first son Hunter Biden. D.C. federal judge Tanya Chutkan, she is declared by the AP as the toughest punisher of rioters charged with offenses related to the riot. Can Trump get a fair trial from this person?
Well, there's a lot of leeway given to judges because of their background. There would need to be some demonstrable bias in favor of the government or prejudice against Trump in her background or her mannerism before she can be removed from the case. And I can tell you, when you put that black robe on and you have it for life, your whole attitude changes. It changes about the government. It changes about the people that helped you to achieve this position in your life. I mean, the flip side of this is Judge Aileen Cannon, who's the trial judge in the Mar-a-Lago case, who made some really absurd rulings and tried to tell the government how to conduct its own investigation. She was summarily and unanimously reversed by the appellate court. Judges make mistakes. Judges are human. Judges have the same human aspirations as the rest of us. But in terms of rulings in the courtroom, if they're not fair, the D.C. Circuit is going to interfere. The bigger question is, can he get a fair trial from the jury pool? I mean, the jury pool here is the District of Columbia. This is not the state of Florida. This is not the state of Texas. This is a population base, probably 90% of which despises him.
I mean, what would you do if you were Trump's lawyer at this point? What would you tell him to do?
Well, he wouldn't want to hear what I would tell him to do, which is to try and cut some kind of a deal, because if I'd need to see the discovery. That's the government's file, which the defense lawyers are entitled to see. If that shows that Giuliani and Pence and the other Pence is not a co-conspirator, but Giuliani and the other co-conspirators are going to testify against him, he doesn't stand much of a chance. It'd be much better to enter into some kind of a plea. The other argument is, without using this phrase, because the judge will never let him use this phrase. You love this phrase, and your listeners do as well. Jury nullification, which is that this defendant shouldn't be charged with this crime at this in this courtroom. There are ways to make that argument without using the two words, because the court will prohibit that phrase from being articulated in the courtroom. But there is case law going back to the War of 1812. I think you've heard me tell this story, that upholds the concept of jury nullification.
Judge, is there anything else about this case that you find particularly compelling that you think the audience should know?
Well, beyond what we've discussed, no. The most compelling part is that this is what's called a speaking indictment. So there are two kinds of indictments. There's an indictment that lays out what the government says the defendant did and lays out why that's a crime. That's just a plain old indictment. A speaking indictment, these are inside ballpark phrases. A speaking indictment lays out in great detail all of the government's evidence. The Mar-a-Lago indictment did that, and this indictment does it as well. And if the evidence comes out of the mouths of those 6 co-conspirators, short of jury nullification, I don't see how Trump could be acquitted.
Judge, of all of the Republican presidential candidates that are not named Donald Trump, which of them do you think would have the best shot at beating Joe Biden?
Any of them.
Okay.
I think Biden's presidency is indefensible. Just use that Ronald Reagan line. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Very few people can say that. You can say that because of the success of your show, but you're an anomaly. The vast majority of Americans are overtaxed, overburdened. Inflation is running rampant, and this crazy, insane war in Ukraine, which gets worse and worse and worse. Biden just called up 3,000 reservists and sent them to Poland. And Poland this morning is arguing that Belarus planes invaded its airspace and it wants to invoke Article 5. The Poles, I don't want to blame the nationality. The Polish government is just itching to trigger Article 5 in NATO, which basically means World War III.
There is, on that note that you mentioned, Judge, it is sort of a sad testimony that, and I remember when during my radio broadcasts, the Biden administration, was coming to take power, and I was weeping for our country in 2020. But I remember that my producer or broadcast head, whatever they call him, or the news director, was saying, "Well, why are you upset? This is going to be amazing for us. It's going to be great for our ratings, and we're going to make a lot of money." There is something perverse about the inverse incentives that are generated in behalf of media companies, and in that being out of power is more lucrative for people like us, or CNN, to have Trump in power, which probably explains why they push so hard for him to be the nominee, isn't there?
Yes. Yes, I remember Roger Ailes rejoicing when Barack Obama was elected president. And I said to him, "What are you, crazy?" And he goes, "No, I'm not crazy. Ka-ching, ka-ching. The cash register will be overflowing." And he was right. Fox's ratings, were higher during the Obama presidency than they were even during all the nonsense that Bush put us through.
You know what the saddest part, though, is, Judge, is that people like yourself and myself, we still suffer in the years when people like that are closer to our ideological ilk are in power, because people like you and I actually hold them to account and try and hold them to the same standards that we would hold anyone else, and we're punished by our own team, our own tribe for it.
No, no question about that. No question about it. I mean, the last Republican candidate for president that I voted for was Reagan in 1980. Since then, I've always voted for the Libertarian. I mean, since the neocons and the big government Jim Baker crowd captured Reagan's presidency, the Republicans have stood for nothing other than staying in power.
So am I then correct, Judge, in saying that you have had the honor of being able to vote for Ron Paul for president 3 different times?
I think so. Yes, I don't remember how many times I did, but yes, I did.
Ron
I
Paul
mean,
in
and
'88.
honestly, it would take a Ron Paul in the White House, if he could survive, to change all these things. I mean, he'd need an army of Secret Service agents to protect him from other aspects of the government, from the parts of the government that he would dismantle, from the people that killed JFK and RFK, from the CIA, from the deep state, from the perpetual surveillance people.
If you're just tuning into
Terrible state of affairs that we live in. Very few people, some progressives on the left, most but not all libertarians on the right, take our rights seriously. But the vast majority in government don't. They think that our rights come from the government. They think that rights are a spigot that the government can turn on in good times and dial back in bad times, even though they've taken an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution.
And we all know how they've held that so far. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. We're glad to have you here today. Make sure that you click like and subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on this morning. I'm speaking to Judge Andrew Napolitano. He's the host of the famous Judging Freedom podcast, which you can download on any of your mobile devices, and read his weekly column at judgenap.com. Judge, I'd like to venture into big brain territory for the final part of our discussion this morning. The concept of fascism and socialism has been brought up in the last 24 hours when I casually mentioned on Elon Musk's app, X.com, no longer called Twitter, that fascism was a form of socialism. I've been spending some time reading fascist books by fascists to try and understand a little bit better about the ideology that I oppose in order to be a better advocate against the ideas of centralization of power and of the stripping of individual liberties and individualism itself. And in posting that, when I said that fascism is a form of socialism, there was you might say, violent reprisal that came online from people who were disagreeing with me, mostly from leftists, Antifa types, communists, Marxists, etc., who claim that, fascism and Nazism are not forms of socialism, and from some, well-meaning conservatives that really haven't done their homework on this one. But Judge, of course, you have done your homework on this one. Is it fair to say that Nazism, as Hitler understood it, or fascism, as Mussolini understood it, that these ideologies, which still exist today, although in different forms, are all forms of socialism?
Well, if you talk about just the economic definition, the classic Ayn Rand economic definition of fascism is private ownership and government control, and of socialism is government ownership and government control. Now, from there, fascism, of course, sprouted into a bitter form of nationalism and racism, and it sprouted into perpetual war. But to the extent that they both regulate free market activities to the benefit of the government, they are from a common root. It almost doesn't matter who owns the means of production, as long as the government gets to control the means of production. So where government controls the means of production, controls wages, controls prices, it almost doesn't matter if government also owns the factories and pays the workers directly. So I think you're safe in making the argument that you're making. The fascism of the last century, of course, included the racial hatred and the war. Ayn Rand's definition, which is sort of a textbook classroom definition. But when government has that kind of power, it can't resist the temptation to veer off into war and racism, because government knows if it can find a common enemy, some enemy for the people to hate, whether it's Emmanuel Goldstein in 1984, or whether it's the Jewish people in Germany, whether it's the Italian Jews in Italy, whether it's Bohemians or gypsies or whatever object of scorn there is, that helps the government whip up people into a bizarre form of patriotism and loyalty to the government's excesses.
Judge, one of the concepts that I've struggled with over the years is this concept of the military-industrial complex as it exists today. Because, if it is perhaps utopian to consider that war could ever be abolished, if there is going to be war in the future, and if it is unavoidable, I think we should avoid it at almost any means necessary. But if it's inevitable to a certain extent, then what is the alternative to a military industrial complex if you consider that the only alternative that could exist would be a government control and government owned munitions factories, right? If government were to own Remington, or they were to manufacture the firearms that are used, the only other alternative to fight a war that you could win would be something like a military industrial complex, where there would be privatized war factories that, were privately owned and created tanks. Therefore, war profiteering in itself is impossible to avoid, because people, in order for them to run a factory that creates bullets, for example, they need to have profits so that they can pay the employees to manufacture those bullets that would be necessary. So the Soviets had central planning in order to provide to win the war against the Nazis, and the United States created a military industrial complex that relied on private means to create the munitions that were necessary to win the war. Is there some other alternative, or is it just that we have to just keep a lid over it to ensure that it doesn't interfere with our democratic processes, as Eisenhower said?
So when I was interviewing Chris Christie the other day, and I said, how are you going to pay for 900 foreign military installations, he was shocked to find out that there are 900 American military installations around the world. So keeping a lid on it is really an understatement. We spend $860 billion on the Department of Defense. That's more than the 12 next countries in the world combined, which of course includes China and Russia, both of which have larger and more effective militaries than we do. The military-industrial complex is one of the great scandals of the modern era. It has a stranglehold on the Congress. It has astutely and adroitly spread its assets throughout the United States, so members of Congress fear being thrown out of office if they don't continually vote to fund it so that their constituents can be employed. I would not be in favor of a standing army because the Constitution doesn't authorize one. I would not be in favor of a Department of Defense anywhere near the size of what we have. I would be in favor of letters of marque and reprisal, which is what the Constitution expressly authorizes the Congress to do. That's the designation of a private group to win a specific war and to do so for profit. In terms of manufacturing arms, only the profit motive works. If the government manufactures arms, they'll shoot the people that are using them. That just won't work. So you have to have the profit motive, but you don't have to have the federal government funding the amount of armaments that are funded today. We export, the second largest American export after fossil fuels is armaments to other countries with federal approval. These entities, as I said, have a stranglehold on the government. It needs to be dialed back radically and substantially. I don't know what the number would be, but needs to be dialed back immensely before this monkey is off our backs.
One last question, Judge. Another question something that I tussle with over the years is this question of negative rights and positive rights. Whereas you and I want to live in a world where only negative rights exist, the idea of a right to a trial by jury or the right to have a speedy trial, it does seem to imply some form of a positive right, because where would we extract the resources to set up a court system and a legal system, or to pay to provide the lawyer that would be necessary to protect someone's rights against the government? That it does seem to imply the right to a trial by jury or the right to a speedy trial, that there does need to be some form of a positive right or perhaps some form of taxation to provide a court to protect people's rights. How do we deal with that?
I have struggled with this. The Rothbardians claim that this can all be done privately, and I just can't get my hands around that. So I suppose I am a minarchist as opposed to an anarchist, because I believe there needs to be, well, what government is moral in the absence of consent? A government that enforces natural rights. So you steal my cow from my pasture, I can either come and get it back, or I can hire somebody to take it back because you violated my natural rights. So the right to a speedy trial and the right to a fair trial are species of fairness. And where does fairness come from? Well, fairness comes from the natural law, those immutable, universally recognizable principles of right and wrong. Everybody can pretty much say what's right and what's wrong just from the way we're hardwired to recognize evil and to pursue good. So a negative right is a classic example is the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. It doesn't say Congress shall grant the freedom of speech. That would be a positive right. It's just a negative right. It restrains the government from interfering with a right that pre-exists the government. Among those rights that pre-exist the government is the right to fairness. You steal my cow, I can't take two from you. I can only take back the one that you took from me. That, of course, would be the law of nature before there was a government and when the two of us had cows.
Judge, I'm so thankful.
The problem with government today is it confuses rights and privileges. Rights come from our humanity. Privileges, like voting or driving your car on a government street, come from the government. Rights have no precondition. They are undefeasible claims against the whole world. Privileges have a requirement. You got to learn how to drive the car. You got to drive it safely. You got to be of a certain age.
Judge, I'm so thankful for your guidance on things like this. It does help me to know that I'm not alone in struggling over those issues, and that there really are no simple answers to these very difficult problems, because sometimes I feel a bit adrift with what I believe when I'm confronted with those kinds of challenges. But it does give me some solace to know that you are challenged by those as well. Judge, can you give us a sneak preview of what's to come on Judging Freedom and perhaps your column for this week?
My column this week is The Government and the Freedom of Speech, pretty much what we've been talking about now, the Facebook case, where the government is attempting to do indirectly coerce a private entity to suppress speech because of its content, that which the First Amendment unambiguously prohibits the government from doing directly. In terms of today, I have Tony Schaefer and Scott Ritter. Schaefer at 3:30 Eastern, Scott Ritter at 4:30 Eastern. Why is it that the media and the government are perpetuating the lie that Russia has already lost the war when Ukraine is truly on its last legs?
That's good stuff, Judge. We will definitely check that out. Thank you very much for your time, Judge. We missed you very much, and we will see you next week.
You got it, my man. All the best.
Thank you very much. What do you think of Judge Napolitano? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. Thank you, Joe Spinella. He says he's had a lot of success bringing men acting in their government capacity into court using common law under the 7th. Government cannot harm man and has no rights and cannot violate man's rights. Good stuff, Joe. Thanks for the super chat. Helps to support the show. We appreciate it very much. When we get back, Cliff Maloney talk about why 18-year-old men are skewing more conservative than they have ever in history. We'll talk about that. But there's a caveat. There's a catch. But wait, there's more. Flex Seal. We'll be back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
It was 1946. A battle was fought, not overseas, but right here on American soil. The Battle of Athens, an intense struggle against election fraud and for the rights promised by our founding fathers. Driven by the Second Amendment, ordinary citizens stood tall and fought back. Help us expose this momentous battle of integrity and bravery. Your support can make a difference. Visit givesendgo.com/bleedamerican and pledge your support, because we believe in the power of truth, the strength of unity, and the spirit of we the people. Let us not forget, we bleed American.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Sorry for the heavy delay there on the commercials. Zoom just decided to upload a new feature today that says you have to wait this amount of time before you can start a new meeting. So technical issues be what they may, it's still been a great show, I think. Did you enjoy The Judge? I think you did. I've got a lot of great comments over there. Make sure that you click like and subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on today. Our two big ones are Rumble and YouTube, which we are delighted to have our listeners supporting us today. We've gotten a lot of super chats this morning. Thank you for your financial support of the show. But if you're a good capitalist like myself and you don't want to trade money for nothing, the chicks are free. Check out apforlibertyshop.com. Get you some delicious Founding Flavors coffee. Today I'm drinking Franklin's Electric Elixir. It's my favorite, most delicious of all the brands. They're all great, but this one is AP signed, sealed, delivered, stamp of approval for #1 there. But we also got some Liberty Lullaby for those of you who are decaf drinkers out there. All right, my next guest is sure to electrify you with his point of view. He's a freedom fighter in his own right. He's helped many candidates sail to victory on the backs of ideas that you and I believe in: economic freedom and personal liberty. He's a former Ron Paul and Rand Paul staffer, and he lives right here with me here in Missouri from Sedalia. His name's Cliff Maloney, and he's joining us now. Good morning, Cliff.
AP, love having the time to be here. Love seeing The Judge. Such a patriot.
Absolutely. This is a show for patriots and by patriots, Cliff, and that's why you're here today. Speaking of patriots, I was reading this study yesterday that showed that 18-year-old boys, this is high school seniors, are in their senior year of high school, are almost 2 times more likely to identify as conservative than as liberal. There's a caveat. For 12th grade girls, they're even more likely to consider themselves liberal than conservative. Your take on this?
Well, I'm going to get myself in trouble, but I mean, I think this has pretty much been proven by Jordan Peterson and plenty of medical studies that women are friendlier, warmer, more agreeable than men. And I think when you look at a study like this, I think it reflects society in that, women are willing to go along with some of the institutions. Women, these are high school women, are able to go along with kind of the culture where the new counterculture is being against the left. And so I think you see young men who, by the way, I mean, if you look at the crosstabs in this, I would almost guarantee the strong jump from 13 to 19% of men who say that they are, identify as conservative is probably because white guys all through elementary, middle, and high school have been told they need to feel guilt, have been told that they need to apologize, and have been told that they are, supposed to bow down to people that are not white. And look, I'm not somebody that wants to always dive in on race, but coming from a blue collar background, when people come up and have their own strife and their own difficulties, I think a lot of people eventually start to object to that. So I think what you're seeing is it's weird because it used to be the counterculture was the left. And now every major institution, every major government program, every mafia, alphabet soup acronym that there is out there that represents so-called we the people is run by the left. And so I just think you have this natural pushback from the less agreeable people, young boys, who are saying, listen, we don't agree with this. We don't want to continue to apologize for something we have no control over. And we're not going to agree with the institutions. And I think that trend is finally starting. Now, unfortunately, when they get to college, it's a little different, right? And so I do think that college creates kind of this island where, you're diving into absolutely one set of core beliefs, unless you go to a Grove City or a Hillsdale. And I just think that high school shows you when people are still in their habitat, when they're still going home, when they're still in that family environment, they're trending in our direction because they've been just throttled by the left for so many years now.
No kidding. If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking to Cliff Maloney. Good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching the Wake Up America show. Click like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content that you have. That's a pretty spicy take on that, Cliff. That's not the kind of thing that if it was CNN that they would have gone unchallenged. MSNBC right now, they'd be having the vapors. They'd be attempting to cancel you on all fronts, Cliff. But it's probably true just from all of the data that we've seen here. So, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm not very good at winning elections. You are. So tell me something. How do we tailor a libertarian message to get more women involved or active in these ideas, knowing that, man, these ideas typically are not super popular with the ladies?
Yeah, well, I think, I don't mean to always reference your uncle, Jordan Peterson, but I do think that there is something to be said when he asks the question, what do you want in a partner? He says this to women. He says, do you want a weak man? Do you want somebody who can't provide, who can't defend your family, who can't help you build a home? No, you want a strong partner. That doesn't mean that they're going to overpower the women. But I have to say, I think right now the libertarian message, if you look at groups like Moms for Liberty, these are tiger ladies, man, and they are out there ready to protect their kids. And so you could say, well, that's a little later in life, and you have women, once they have children and become moms, look at the ideas of liberty. But I think you see natural reactions and resistance to some of these oversteps from these authoritarians. And Moms for Liberty, to me, is one of the most organic libertarian uprisings in the country. And how did it start? Because of these government cronies telling these kids, you must mask up, you must take the jab, you must fall in line, you cannot go to school, you must social distance with these plexiglasses between these 5-year-olds. And moms in this country said, hell no, this is insane. So I think sometimes, unfortunately, we have to push people to the brink. And once again, women, for the most part, are more agreeable than men. It's trust the science, okay? Not me, trust the science. The BBC studies, they've put it out. I'm not saying that. Some people are saying that. But if women are more agreeable than men, I think once again, that's why you see that to be pushed as hard as you can, men, eventually they won't put up with it. But I think women, look at Moms for Liberty, they get to that point too. You come after their kids, you come after their freedoms, and eventually, this is why we still fight, the human instinct, hopefully the American instinct, continues to be to push back, to say stop to the government tyrants.
That's damn good stuff. That's why we bring Cliff Maloney on here, who's joining us right now on the Wake Up America show. Glad to have you here. Give him a round of applause. Yes. Thank you, studio audience. And thank you to Matt Unruh. He says, yes, I love this show, especially today. He does say, I currently have too much coffee to try yours, AP, but one day. Good. Make sure that you put that on your to-do list. And of course, if you love the coffee, you can sign up for a subscription model to get it delivered to your house every month. And you're helping to support the message of economic freedom and personal liberty with your coffee purchases. Stop buying crap from woke corporations that hate you. And that is a good segue for me to ask you about the whole Bud Light thing, Cliff. Because one, I want to ask you about your thoughts on the culture wars. A lot of our libertarian brethren say to us that libertarianism is a position about government and nothing else, and we shouldn't be engaged in the culture wars at all. I kind of disagree. I think that Bud Light is a good example of consumer power and of how we can shape capitalism to support our principles and ideals if we actually all work together. But I'd love to hear your take on the Bud Light stuff.
Yeah, look, I think if you would have asked me 5 years ago, I was the type of libertarian that would say, listen, we need to let people live their lives. We need to sit back. You need to just, not have the government play a role. The problem with that, Austin, is what the left has done forces us to react. Okay, and this is something for all my diehard pure libertarian friends. When they come after your kids, when they come after your job, when they're trying to force a vaccine on you, it does change the playing field. It doesn't mean we're not consistent because all of a sudden we want to play in culture wars or we want to have an opinion. It means that we're rational, that we're fighting back against the authoritarian lunacy. So when you see Bud Light, what I tell people is, yeah, you can say, oh, well, is it a big deal or does it really matter? It's just somebody that they're putting on the can. Somebody sat in a room and decided that even though the vast majority of their consumer base are straight, Christian-based, rural Americans, that they want to just flout it and rub it in your face. That is a decision that they made. And so you have to put yourself in the shoes of these people that are making these decisions, and it makes you realize how much of a bubble they're in. So yes, do I think, am I drinking Bud Light? Is Bud Light in my house? No. I have no interest in supporting these people that absolutely hate my values. And so I think that when you look at the crowd of people who say, well, we should just let people do their thing, they're missing the motivation of the individuals that are pushing this and their complete tone deafness to what people care about. And they think they can just do it and get away with it. So my reaction, this might seem a little bit childish, is I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to prove them wrong that if they make these decisions that are just flaunting it right in our face and just saying, F you and your culture, well, guess what? The free market's going to work. We're going to stop buying your product. More people need to do that. We need to do that as much as possible. Anytime there is somebody who is laughing at you, stop opening your checkbook to support their business.
Amen. Amen. And, that's in part why I started my coffee company. I'm tired of spending money on things that I buy every day, knowing that they're taking that money and using it against us. I mean, I think the final straw was when I saw that Starbucks had launched some other new woke initiative or something like that. And I was just saying to myself, I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. And I know people are buying coffee every day, drinking it anyway. When they're watching the Wake Up America show, everybody's like, I've got my coffee, I'm ready to go. And it's like, why can't that be my coffee, right? So, I mean, I was going to ask you for your advice for young libertarians and conservatives. My advice is, to start a business, to, get yourself off of working for a lot of these corporations, because I know that with the DEI standards and ESG standards, that if you're a straight white male Christian Republican right winger, anything to the right of Joseph Stalin, then you are not welcome in the white collar workforce these days. Maybe better to go do a blue collar job or something like that. But you and I, we've worked for major institutions, Cliff, so I don't want to be a hypocrite and say, yeah, it's good to have the Fox News gold star on your resume like I do if I ever want to get another job. But at the end of the day, I don't need a resume anymore, Cliff. I make my own money. So what advice would you have for young people? And you've mentored a lot of young people over the years. What advice do you have for young libertarians or conservatives who want to get involved but don't know where to start about how to get, involved in the fight for liberty?
Rule number one, stay away from woke corporate boards with weak men. That's number one. These folks will be tormented, they will be pushed, and they will do things that will surprise even the most supportive people in your life. So be very careful of that. Number two, if you even have an inch of entrepreneurial spirit, tap into that. Okay, we are living in the times where a secondary economy is being created. You can look back in history and see things where when the institutions and everything lines up and is politicized, what is created is a secondary economy. That's happening. Okay, you're seeing it with Hollywood. You're seeing it with Starbucks, with AP's coffee company. You're seeing it with all of these side companies as a response to the woke left pushing the same thing and people saying, no, enough's enough. So I really just push everybody to say, if you have any interest in business or doing something or creating something, do it. And my advice is always this: if you have to work an hourly job, if you have to grind for a year, 2, 5 years to save up enough funds to then get into the business or to have the startup capital to try something, don't wait. I know so many of my friends who thought, I'll get there eventually. Just jump in. I mean, that's the coolest thing about America. As much as there's tons of woke BS and there's all these things out there pushing back against you, we still have a country. You still can get in and try to live that American dream. And I just would push everybody to try not to work for the man, to try to start your own thing, figure out what your customer wants and figure out what you can provide to the marketplace. And that's the libertarian dream. You should go for it.
I love it, man. Cliff, you're definitely one of our best new regular guests on the show. We appreciate that very much. People are giving you a round of applause over there in the chat, saying good stuff, Cliff. Great rant from Joni Rankin and Tolly Owens. All freedom fighters as well in their own right. Build your own business, says Sarah Sanchez. Absolutely. 1,000% worth it. It absolutely is. Stephanie and I love it. And now we work together and we spend our time working from home together. And it actually helps, our marriage, we build our relationship together. I know some couples may fight like cats and dogs if they work together, but it works for us. Cliff, is there anything else that you think that our listeners ought to know before we let you go today?
No, head on over to cliffmaloney.com. Be happy to chat with you guys and make sure everybody hits that like and subscribe button. AP is one of the best out there. Appreciate the time.
Cliff, you're a true patriot and a great American. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate you. Speaking of Buy American, don't forget to check out my friend John Burke's Shell Shock CBD website, where he's got delicious Delta 8 THC gummies that will make you fly higher than an eagle, or some non-psychoactive CBD products as well, all made in America from a veteran-owned company. I highly endorse and recommend my friend John Burke's website, Shell Shock CBD. But here's the thing: if you want to help support the channel and the show, we've got a new link for you to use in order for you to get those for us to get credit for those affiliate purchases that you buy. shellshockcbd.com with that reference AP for Liberty. I'm dropping the link there right now at YouTube as well as over on Rumble. If you're interested in getting some delicious pineapple flavored or green apple flavored Delta 8 or CBD gummies, check those out over at that link that I've dropped over on Rumble as well as on YouTube. If you're watching us on Facebook, sorry about that, I don't have my Facebook open, so make sure that you check those out. I've got those links dropped for you. Take a look around his website, and if you make a purchase, that goes to help the show as well. He's supporting freedom-based businesses. You all know John Burke, don't you? He's a great guy, a patriot, fellow freedom fighter himself. He's the host of the All-American Savage Show that streams Mondays through Fridays at noon on Rumble, so make sure you check him out as well and use that link if you're going to be buying any of your CBD or Delta 8 stuff. It's already, time to go? Jeez. This show flew by today. It was awesome, though. It's a great show. I miss you guys whenever we're not on the show together. Do you guys miss me? I'm always excited whenever Stephanie gets to come in on Friday, though, and we're getting close. Today's Wednesday, 2 more days. Stephanie's going to be on the show, and I'm super excited because Stephanie and I are going to start working together a little bit more. She's going to start taking some more responsibility for in the business, doing stuff to help us to grow and continue together. It reminds me of like when my dad started his business, which was called Stonegate Farm and Nursery, and mine's Stonegate Pictures LLC. And my mother, Donna Jo Peterson, started working for my dad, and then they built up that business, and they, just as they were starting to really make it, that's unfortunately my mom got sick and passed away. But there really was a golden age of time when my mother and father were working together arm in arm, raising us kids, and that was truly a golden age for us. So when Stephanie and I have our kids, maybe that'll be the same situation. That's all we can hope for. All right. Hey, I love you guys. You rock. Thank you so much for all of the super chats today. You were so very generous, and I'm grateful to you. Our friends like Joe Spinella and Matt Unruh, who stepped in to make big, generous donations today. We appreciate that very much. It helps us to grow the show and to continue to keep the lights on over here. It's expensive to run the Wake Up America show, but thanks to people like you and people, sponsors like John Burke, keep the lights on for you. Well, that's Motel 6. Alrighty. Well, we'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. I'm your freestyle dance teacher. Peace out.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website, and I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy Bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bullshit. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bullshit blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.